The episode starts with Fate catching someone sneaking around. It turns out to be Roxy, who's dressed like a normal villager. Fate is confused. Why is she, a big deal, acting like a regular person? Roxy looks a bit embarrassed and says she's on a secret mission. She asks Fate not to tell anyone and wonders what Haru would think if she knew. Fate agrees to keep it a secret, and Roxy thanks him. She then has a clever idea. She wants Fate to be her escort. Since Fate is already dressed like a peasant, he doesn't need a disguise. As they head to town, Fate keeps calling her Madi, which makes Greed, the sarcastic sword, complain that people will notice. Roxy doesn't understand and asks Fate to call her Lexi instead. Greed makes another comment about Roxy's boring name choice. Fate tells Greed to be quiet, but Roxy thinks he's talking to her and apologizes. Fate clears up the misunderstanding quickly. Roxy, pretending she didn't just turn down Fate, says she's excited to go to town with him. Greed can't help but tease again, leading Fate to threaten him. Roxy steps in, not wanting any trouble. She notices she's never seen Fate's sword up close and is curious. Fate hesitates, worried she might find his sword or his gluttony skills strange. He remembers Greed's warning about losing control if he doesn't feed his gluttony skill, making him nervous about showing too much. Fate's sword slips, and Roxy picks it up to look at it closely. She doesn't find anything strange, but notes it needs some maintenance. She offers to take him to the Hart family's blacksmith, showing off a bit. Fate is happy about the chance to get Greed repaired, but Greed is oddly silent. Fate wonders what's wrong until his sword tells him to be quiet. Greed is enjoying Roxy's scent and is in bliss. They finally reach the busy town. Roxy finds some grapes and learns they're from the Hart family's vineyard. Even though it's her own vineyard, she decides to try them. Fate is amazed by how good they taste, making Roxy proudly brag about her family's vineyard. As the merchants Roxy bragging, it seems they might have blown their cover right away. But Greed gives Fate a quick idea. Fate explains that Roxy is visiting because she has a relative who works there. Roxy is impressed by his quick thinking, and Greed tells Fate he owes him one. Just then, a group of holy knights arrives, stirring up the crowd. Everyone starts gossiping about how these problems began after Sir Mason's death. Fate's stomach growls loudly, making one of the holy knights very angry. Fate tries to apologize, but the holy knight isn't having it and even tries to step on him. Roxy steps in to stop him, but the knight starts to recognize her. The crowd wonders if she might be Lady Roxy. Greed comes up with a smart idea. If Fate pretends they're a couple, people will think she's just a regular girl. Although Fate is surprised by the bold suggestion, Roxy overhears and thinks it's a great plan. She grabs Fate, and they start pretending to argue about him not eating the breakfast she made. The awkward act works, and everyone is too uncomfortable to say anything, allowing them to sneak away. Fate suddenly realizes he can hear Roxy's thoughts. She's nervous because she's never held hands with a boy before, and her heart is racing. This makes Fate a bit panicked. Roxy decides they need to keep moving, and Fate starts to think being Roxy's escort might be harder than he thought. Soon, Roxy shows interest in a huge gem and some ores that might have gems in them. Fate uses his Identify skill to check if there's a gem hidden in one, but Greed warns him to be careful. Merchants don't like people who use Identify. Roxy is more interested in the gems than the ores. Fate is surprised to see Roxy acting like a normal girl, not the holy knight she usually is. The merchant offers a discount, hoping to make a sale, but Roxy decides she doesn't need any gems. She quickly asks Fate if he knows any active warriors because she has some questions. Luckily, Fate and Roxy overhear some guys talking about dead goblins found recently. The rumor is that a wandering monster might be responsible. But there's a mystery. Goblin ears were donated to an orphanage, which doesn't fit the wandering monster. With no more leads, Roxy asks Fate to take her to a place where warriors hang out. Fate realizes this is part of her investigation into the wandering monster rumored to be around the capital. Fate is speechless because he is, in fact, that wandering monster. Greed makes another cheeky comment about how interesting this twist is. They head to a bar Fate used to visit, but the bartender doesn't recognize him at first. The bartender is shocked to see Fate alive, and even more surprised to see he has a girlfriend. Fate worries Roxy might be offended by being called his girlfriend, and Greed jokes that she might even have Fate executed for it. Roxy looks flustered and accidentally breaks a cup. The bartender reassures her that it happens all the time. Greed tells Fate that Roxy was probably feeling self-conscious, which makes Fate smash his own cup in frustration. Greed says that Fate getting angry is a sign he's getting stronger. The bartender adds that the cup was about to break anyway. The easygoing bartender then shares that he's heard about a warrior who made a lot of money from goblin corpses. This warrior found a huge pile of goblins with their ears still on them. Roxy says that if a warrior did all that work, they wouldn't leave valuable corpses behind. She thinks a monster from somewhere else is responsible. This is bad news because many people travel through the goblin plane, and a dangerous creature could scare them away. Fate feels guilty because he's the one to blame, but gets distracted when an old friend walks in, shocked to see Fate. The old man says that people think the wandering monster is a lich. This is a big problem, so the Holy Knights are planning to deal with it. Greed is worried because he's taken away all of Fate's power, and Fate wouldn't stand a chance against the Holy Knights. The old man asks why Roxy is so interested, but she can't come up with a good answer. Fate is worried about Roxy seeing him use his gluttony skill. Just then, some traveling warriors arrive, asking for drinks and inviting Roxy to join them. As things settle down, Fate tries to step in, but Roxy handles it easily. The warriors realize that only a holy knight could be so powerful, and Roxy finally admits it. The bartender knew all along, but the warriors are amazed to learn that Roxy is from the Hart family, one of the 5 families that support the king. They apologize and try to give her all their money, but Roxy refuses. She's disappointed that people see holy knights as scary. Her father wanted a world where holy knights and regular people could laugh together, and Roxy shares that dream. Everyone starts to get along, and Fate decides he will support Roxy until her dream comes true. Later, Greed enjoys being fixed and feels like a new sword. Roxy explains that she didn't know about the monster hunt because it's led by the Valeric family, who didn't tell her. They then hear that Who is hurting someone. The Valeric family says they're just helping a lost child, but Fate thinks it doesn't look right. Roxy steps in and says they will take care of the boy. She asks Raphael why she wasn't told about the hunt. Raphael thought she'd be too sad about her father. Roxy says she's fine. The Valeric family decides to leave, but Who insults Fate, calling him trash. Fate stands up to him, and Raphael tells Who to stop. They take the boy to find his mother, and Fate thinks about when he was lost as a child after his father died, and they move to the capital. He wonders what happened to the Holy Knight who looked after him then. Just when it seems they won't find the boy's mother, she appears. Fate is relieved and amazed at how happy Roxy is to have helped the boy. Roxy suggests they go home, reminding Fate that if they get into trouble, they'll face it together. Fate agrees. Back home, Fate wishes days like this could last forever, but he knows it's not possible. He asks Greed if there's a way to hunt monsters without Roxy finding out. Greed suggests a magic item that hides their appearance and takes Fate to a shop to buy a mask that will make them look different to anyone who sees them. Later, Fate gives Roxy one of the ores, but she isn't interested. Fate thanks Roxy for giving him a job that helped him make friends he now considers family. He apologizes for not getting her the gem she wanted, but Roxy is happy with the gift he did get her. She easily opens the gift, showing some shiny stuff inside. Fate is impressed with his identify skill. Roxy promises to treasure the gift forever and thinks about what she could give Fate in return. She considers a year's supply of meat or a whetstone for sharpening his sword, but Fate says neither is necessary. Greed, however, suggests he take the whetstone as he'll need it. While this seems like a happy ending, we see Raphael with a serious look, gathering other knights to discuss their upcoming trip to Gallia. Meanwhile, a group of adventurers is shocked to find that the Lich has attacked again, wiping out all the monsters in the area. They panic when they see the Lich, now called Corpse, right in front of them. They run off in fear, and Fate thinks the nickname Corpse is pretty cool. Greed wonders if Fate is done for the day, but Fate is determined to raise his stats as high as possible before the Holy Knights come after him. The next day, Fate looks tired from his double life. Roxy interrupts him at work to tell him she has a secret mission. On the way, she shows him her family's vineyard, thinking the mission might be about harvesting grapes. She just wanted to show him their vineyard because he liked the grapes so much last time. When they arrive at their destination, Roxy is worried about her mother's health, but her mother, Aisha, says she's feeling better than usual. Roxy introduces Fate not as a friend or the person who bought her gift, but as a servant she hired. Fate is surprised to meet Aisha, who asks if he likes her daughter, Roxy. This makes both Fate and Roxy uncomfortable, but Aisha clarifies she meant if he likes her as a boss. Fate, feeling sincere, declares that he cares deeply for Roxy and would like to serve her for life if given the chance. Roxy, surprised and embarrassed, quickly runs off to her room. Aisha reassures Fate, saying Roxy has always run off when things get awkward, just like now. She remembers Roxy as a crybaby who would get upset over bugs. Fate contrasts this with Roxy's current strong and serious demeanor, and Aisha is still amazed that her little girl became a holy knight. Despite her worries, Fate assures her that Roxy is an excellent holy knight and that the people have a lot of faith in her. Aisha feels proud and comforted by his words. Meanwhile, Roxy is alone in her room, holding a creepy doll and thinking about her father. She recalls how proud he was of her becoming a holy knight and feels ashamed that she hasn't fully fulfilled that promise yet. She puts down a 3D printed action figure of her father. Later, the secret mission turns out to be harvesting grapes. Fate tries some delicious juice and learns that the lords have personally helped cultivate the land for generations. Everyone takes pride in the flavor of the grapes. Fate, curious, asks about Sir Mason, and the man mentions that his death must be hard on Roxy. He also says Roxy helps with hunting during harvest time because that's when monsters called Cobalt. The conversation pauses when Fate's stomach growls, and and everyone laughs. Fate, worried about the dangerous situation Greed hinted at, explains that after all the goblin, his gluttony skill now craves different souls. Roxy sends Fate home early as she has other matters to attend to. On his way home, Fate meets a girl with a sharp weapon who has the same eyes as him. He tries to check her stats but fails. The girl cryptically says she arrived too early and tells Fate he can have the kobolds she was after, declaring he owes her one. She says they'll meet again before leaving. Greed, unusually quiet, claims not to know who she is, but Fate is skeptical. Greed admits there are things even he doesn't know. Roxy arrives, surprised to learn that the girl is from Galia. Fate remembers that Galia was supposedly destroyed. Professor Roxy explains that Galia was a powerful military nation 4,000 years ago, but fell due to monster attacks. Most of its people died, and the girl Fate met is clearly a survivor. Roxy is astonished to see a full-blooded Galian for the first time. As they head home, Fate worries about Roxy handling the monsters alone. Roxy reassures him that she'll be with the warriors who work in the area and is confident she can handle things. They share a laugh when Fate accidentally drops the grapes. The next day, the farmers discover that monsters have ruined the vineyard. Everyone gets ready to take revenge on the kobolds, but is stunned to see a new, unfamiliar monster. Fate, more hungry than surprised, is distressed, and Greed notices Fate's gluttony is on high alert. The new monster, called the Bringer of Lamentation, is level 50 and a crowned beast, meaning it's extremely powerful and aggressive. Panic spreads in the village as people realize they're outmatched. Roxy steps up, calming the crowd with a confident speech and instructing the warriors to prepare for battle. Greed tells Fate their chances are slim and that they should wait until the next day to fight, giving the warriors time to prepare. Feeling overwhelmed but determined, Fate tells Greed to prepare for battle. That night, Fate heads into the forest. Greed mocks him for his heroism. As they watch the monsters, Greed notes that several Cobalt warriors are surrounding the crowned beast. Fate reveals his plan is to use his gluttony skills in battle. He transforms Greed into his bow form and starts attacking the monster. The Cobalts are surprised as Fate's gluttony skill activates, leading to swift eliminations. Fate fires an arrow at the crowned beast, but it deflects the arrow with one of its soldiers. Switching back to his sword, Fate fights several monsters, activating his gluttony skill repeatedly, but still feels unsatisfied. He returns to his bow, fires another arrow, and confidently says this will end the fight. However, the crowned beast catches the arrow, forcing Fate to prepare for close combat. As the beast readies a move called Ruinous Strike, Greed explains it can destroy armor, bones, and organs. They dodge the attack, but the shockwave hits them, sending Fate tumbling into a river. Greed desperately calls for Fate to wake up. As a Cobalt soldier moves in for a final attack, Fate swiftly slices off its arms, revealing he was only pretending to be unconscious. He easily defeats another Cobalt, activating his gluttony skill again. Greed notes that Fate should now be able to use his first-level hidden art. Although it will cost 10% of his current stats, this move will quickly end the battle. Fate agrees, and Greed's bow transformation upgrades dramatically. Fate unleashes a powerful shot that overwhelms the crowned beast, leading to its defeat. Fate reflects that the attack might have been overkill, but his gluttony skill activates again. Despite his victory, Fate is in severe pain. Greed explains that this is because Fate is experiencing the effects of devouring a high-quality soul for the first time. Greed urges Fate to endure, warning that not doing so will worsen his condition. Fate struggles with the pain, which is almost unbearable. The next day, warriors arrive at the scene of the battle and speculate that magic arrows caused the damage. Roxy, also present, wonders who could have dealt such powerful blows. Meanwhile, Fate recovers and discusses the events with Roxy's mother, Aisha. Roxy recalls seeing the Gallian girl the previous day and suspects she might have been the one to eliminate the monster. Fate sighs in relief, glad he isn't under suspicion. As Roxy prepares to return to the capital, Aisha observes how happy she is when talking to Fate. She asks Fate to stay by Roxy's side to support her, revealing that what she values most is Fate's genuine desire to help Roxy. Fate, committed to supporting Roxy, agrees, knowing that this is what truly matters. Aisha, with a touch of irony, compares herself to Fate. She admits that while she never had any special skills, she supported her husband. She reveals that she doesn't have much time left, which is why she wants Fate to support Roxy in her place. She tells him to take his time to think about it. On his way home, Fate struggles with whether he deserves such responsibility, given the huge secret he's hiding. That night, he's alarmed to find his eyes still red and feels an insatiable hunger despite just defeating a swarm of goblins. Greed explains that goblins no longer satisfy his monstrous hunger. Fate is frustrated by the lack of stronger monsters and realizes he needs to find something to quench his growing hunger. Later, Fate sits at a bar, hiding his red eye, and decides he's not worthy to stand by Roxy's side. The old man at the bar talks about an upcoming Galia expedition. Fate is shocked to learn that the expedition is being planned so soon after Mr. Mason's death. The old man expresses hope that the worst doesn't come true, but Fate suspects it likely will. At the capital, Roxy's father is surprised to hear she's been assigned to the Gallia expedition. Fate, distressed, pleads with Roxy not to go, fearing she might never return. Despite his pleas, Roxy is determined to go, and there's nothing he can do to stop her. Fate watches her leave, troubled by the old man's comments about the Hart family being a nuisance to the Valeric and other holy knights. Rumors suggest that they orchestrated the Gallia expedition. Meanwhile, the Valeric family celebrates, anticipating the removal of the nuisance. Two of the siblings leave, leaving Hu behind. Hu wants Raphael to reveal his secret about immortality, but Raphael only says he's counting on Hu to handle the Lich. That night, Fate contemplates his inability to overturn official orders or stop Roxy. He is determined not to let the Holy Knights mistreat people and cause more suffering. His resolve is clear when he decides how to satisfy his hunger. Hu, eagerly awaiting his meeting with Corpse, finally encounters Fate, who turns to him with his glowing red eye.